Do you have a garden at home?
你家有花园吗？
Do you have a garden at home? Yes, I have a small vegetable garden.
是的，我有一个小菜园。
Yes, I have a small vegetable garden. What do you grow in your garden?
你在花园里种什么？
What do you grow in your garden? I grow tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers.
我种番茄、黄瓜和辣椒。
I grow tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers. Do you like to plant flowers?
你喜欢种花吗？
Do you like to plant flowers? Yes, I love planting roses and daisies.
是的，我喜欢种玫瑰和雏菊。
Yes, I love planting roses and daisies. How often do you water your plants?
你多久给植物浇一次水？
How often do you water your plants? I water them every morning.
我每天早上给它们浇水。
I water them every morning. What type of soil do you use?
你用什么类型的土壤？
What type of soil do you use? I use organic potting soil.
我使用有机盆栽土。
I use organic potting soil. Do you use fertilizer for your plants?
你给植物使用肥料吗？
Do you use fertilizer for your plants? Yes, I use compost as fertilizer.
是的，我用堆肥作为肥料。
Yes, I use compost as fertilizer. Have you planted any herbs?
你种了香草吗？
Have you planted any herbs? Yes, I have basil, mint, and parsley.
是的，我有罗勒、薄荷和香菜。
Yes, I have basil, mint, and parsley. What flowers bloom in your garden?
你花园里开哪些花？
What flowers bloom in your garden? I have sunflowers, lilies, and tulips.
我有向日葵、百合和郁金香。
I have sunflowers, lilies, and tulips. Do you like gardening?
你喜欢园艺吗？
Do you like gardening? Yes, it's very relaxing for me.
是的，这对我来说很放松。
Yes, it's very relaxing for me. How do you protect your plants from pests?
你如何保护植物不受害虫侵害？
How do you protect your plants from pests? I use natural insect repellent.
我使用天然的驱虫剂。
I use natural insect repellent. What time do you usually work in the garden?
你通常什么时间在花园里工作？
What time do you usually work in the garden? I prefer to work in the early morning.
我喜欢早上工作。
I prefer to work in the early morning. Do you have a garden shed?
你有花园工具棚吗？
Do you have a garden shed? Yes, I keep my tools in the shed.
是的，我把工具放在工具棚里。
Yes, I keep my tools in the shed. How do you prune your plants?
你怎么修剪植物？
How do you prune your plants? I use sharp pruning shears.
我用锋利的修枝剪。
I use sharp pruning shears. Do you have a favorite flower?
你有最喜欢的花吗？
Do you have a favorite flower? Yes, my favorite flower is the rose.
是的，我最喜欢的花是玫瑰。
Yes, my favorite flower is the rose. How long does it take for seeds to sprout?
种子发芽需要多长时间？
How long does it take for seeds to sprout? It usually takes about 1 to 2 weeks.
通常需要1到2周。
It usually takes about 1 to 2 weeks. What is your garden's biggest challenge?
你花园最大的问题是什么？
What is your garden's biggest challenge? Keeping the weeds under control is difficult.
控制杂草很困难。
Keeping the weeds under control is difficult. Do you enjoy vegetable gardening?
你喜欢种菜吗？
Do you enjoy vegetable gardening? Yes, it's very rewarding to grow your own food.
是的，种植自己的食物非常有成就感。
Yes, it's very rewarding to grow your own food. Have you ever tried growing flowers from seeds?
你尝试过从种子种花吗？
Have you ever tried growing flowers from seeds? Yes, I have planted marigold seeds before.
是的，我以前种过万寿菊的种子。
Yes, I have planted marigold seeds before. What tools do you need for gardening?
你需要哪些园艺工具？
What tools do you need for gardening? I need a shovel, rake, and watering can.
我需要一把铲子、一把耙子和一个浇水壶。
I need a shovel, rake, and watering can. Do you mulch your garden?
你给花园覆盖 mulch 吗？
Do you mulch your garden? Yes, I use wood chips for mulching.
是的，我用木屑覆盖。
Yes, I use wood chips for mulching. What's the best time to plant flowers?
种花的最佳时间是什么时候？
What's the best time to plant flowers? Spring is the best time to plant flowers.
春天是种花的最佳时机。
Spring is the best time to plant flowers. Do you have a compost pile?
你有堆肥堆吗？
Do you have a compost pile? Yes, I compost kitchen scraps and yard waste.
是的，我将厨房废料和庭院垃圾进行堆肥。
Yes, I compost kitchen scraps and yard waste. How do you attract butterflies to your garden?
你如何吸引蝴蝶到你的花园？
How do you attract butterflies to your garden? I plant flowers like milkweed and butterfly bush.
我种植像乳草和蝴蝶灌木这样的花。
I plant flowers like milkweed and butterfly bush. Do you like to sit in your garden?
你喜欢在花园里坐吗？
Do you like to sit in your garden? Yes, it's a peaceful place to relax.
是的，这是一个放松的宁静地方。
Yes, it's a peaceful place to relax. What type of plants do you have in pots?
你有哪些植物放在花盆里？
What type of plants do you have in pots? I have succulents and small herbs in pots.
我有多肉植物和小香草放在花盆里。
I have succulents and small herbs in pots. How do you keep your plants healthy?
你如何保持植物健康？
How do you keep your plants healthy? I check them regularly for signs of stress.
我定期检查它们是否有压力迹象。
I check them regularly for signs of stress. Have you planted any fruit trees?
你种了果树吗？
Have you planted any fruit trees? Yes, I have an apple tree and a peach tree.
是的，我有一棵苹果树和一棵桃树。
Yes, I have an apple tree and a peach tree. Do you know how to propagate plants?
你知道怎么繁殖植物吗？
Do you know how to propagate plants? Yes, I propagate through cuttings.
是的，我通过插枝繁殖。
Yes, I propagate through cuttings. What's your favorite gardening season?
你最喜欢哪个园艺季节？
What's your favorite gardening season? I love spring when everything starts to bloom.
我喜欢春天，万物复苏。
I love spring when everything starts to bloom. How do you plan your garden layout?
你如何规划花园布局？
How do you plan your garden layout? I sketch it out on paper before planting.
我在种植前会在纸上画出草图。
I sketch it out on paper before planting. What color flowers do you prefer?
你喜欢什么颜色的花？
What color flowers do you prefer? I prefer vibrant colors like red and yellow.
我喜欢鲜艳的颜色，比如红色和黄色。
I prefer vibrant colors like red and yellow. Do you grow any exotic plants?
你种植任何外来植物吗？
Do you grow any exotic plants? Yes, I have some orchids in my garden.
是的，我的花园里有一些兰花。
Yes, I have some orchids in my garden. How often do you weed your garden?
你多久除一次草？
How often do you weed your garden? I weed it every week.
我每周除一次草。
I weed it every week. What gardening books do you recommend?
你推荐哪些园艺书籍？
What gardening books do you recommend? I recommend the Garden Primer for Beginners.
我推荐初学者读《花园初学者》。
I recommend the Garden Primer for Beginners. Do you have a garden journal?
你有园艺日记吗？
Do you have a garden journal? Yes, I write down my gardening progress.
是的，我记录我的园艺进展。
Yes, I write down my gardening progress. How do you handle pests in your garden?
你如何处理花园里的害虫？
How do you handle pests in your garden? I use neem oil to repel pests.
我用尼姆油来驱赶害虫。
I use neem oil to repel pests. Have you tried vertical gardening?
你尝试过垂直园艺吗？
Have you tried vertical gardening? Yes, I grow herbs on a vertical planter.
是的，我在垂直种植器上种香草。
Yes, I grow herbs on a vertical planter. What's your favorite vegetable to grow?
你最喜欢种什么蔬菜？
What's your favorite vegetable to grow? I love growing zucchini.
我喜欢种植西葫芦。
I love growing zucchini. Do you save seeds from your plants?
你会保存植物的种子吗？
Do you save seeds from your plants? Yes, I save seeds from my tomatoes.
是的，我保存番茄的种子。
Yes, I save seeds from my tomatoes. How do you deal with plant diseases?
你如何处理植物疾病？
How do you deal with plant diseases? I remove infected leaves and apply treatments.
我去除感染的叶子并施用治疗药物。
I remove infected leaves and apply treatments. What type of flowers are easy to grow?
什么花容易种？
What type of flowers are easy to grow? Marigolds and sunflowers are easy to grow.
万寿菊和向日葵容易种植。
Marigolds and sunflowers are easy to grow. Do you have any tips for new gardeners?
你对新手园丁有什么建议？
Do you have any tips for new gardeners? Start small and be patient with your plants.
从小处开始，对植物要有耐心。
Start small and be patient with your plants. How do you create a garden design?
你如何设计花园？
How do you create a garden design? I use online tools to create a garden plan.
我使用在线工具来创建花园计划。
I use online tools to create a garden plan. What type of mulch do you prefer?
你喜欢什么类型的覆盖物？
What type of mulch do you prefer? I prefer straw or wood chips for mulch.
我喜欢用稻草或木屑作为覆盖物。
I prefer straw or wood chips for mulch. Have you ever attended a gardening workshop?
你参加过园艺工作坊吗？
Have you ever attended a gardening workshop? Yes, it was very informative.
是的，内容很丰富。
Yes, it was very informative. Do you have a favorite gardening tool?
你有最喜欢的园艺工具吗？
Do you have a favorite gardening tool? Yes, my favorite tool is the trowel.
是的，我最喜欢的工具是小铲子。
Yes, my favorite tool is the trowel. What's your garden's biggest success?
你花园最大的成功是什么？
What's your garden's biggest success? I grew the biggest tomatoes this year.
我今年种出了最大的番茄。
I grew the biggest tomatoes this year. How do you plan for seasonal changes?
你如何应对季节变化？
How do you plan for seasonal changes? I rotate my crops each season.
我每个季节轮作作物。
I rotate my crops each season. Do you have any garden decorations?
你有任何花园装饰吗？
Do you have any garden decorations? Yes, I have wind chimes and garden gnomes.
是的，我有风铃和园艺小矮人。
Yes, I have wind chimes and garden gnomes. What do you do in your garden during winter?
冬天你在花园里做什么？
What do you do in your garden during winter? I cover my plants to protect them from frost.
我覆盖植物以保护它们免受霜冻。
I cover my plants to protect them from frost. How do you choose plants for your garden?
你如何选择植物来种植？
How do you choose plants for your garden? I consider the sunlight and soil type.
我考虑阳光和土壤类型。
I consider the sunlight and soil type. Do you like to share your harvest?
你喜欢分享你的收获吗？
Do you like to share your harvest? Yes, I often share vegetables with my neighbors.
是的，我经常和邻居分享蔬菜。
Yes, I often share vegetables with my neighbors. What's the most challenging plant you've grown?
你种过的最具挑战性的植物是什么？
What's the most challenging plant you've grown? Growing orchids has been quite challenging.
种植兰花相当具有挑战性。
Growing orchids has been quite challenging. How do you maintain your garden tools?
你如何维护园艺工具？
How do you maintain your garden tools? I clean them after each use and oil them.
我每次使用后都清洁并上油。
I clean them after each use and oil them. Do you have a greenhouse?
你有温室吗？
Do you have a greenhouse? Yes, I have a small greenhouse for seedlings.
是的，我有一个小温室用于幼苗。
Yes, I have a small greenhouse for seedlings. What time do you usually spend in your garden?
你通常在花园里花多长时间？
What time do you usually spend in your garden? I spend about 2 hours every weekend.
我每个周末花大约2个小时。
I spend about 2 hours every weekend. How do you deal with extreme weather?
你如何应对极端天气？
How do you deal with extreme weather? I bring potted plants indoors during storms.
暴风雨时，我把盆栽植物带到室内。
I bring potted plants indoors during storms. Have you tried companion planting?
你尝试过伴生植物吗？
Have you tried companion planting? Yes, I plant basil next to tomatoes.
是的，我把罗勒种在番茄旁边。
Yes, I plant basil next to tomatoes. What garden pests do you struggle with the most?
你最烦恼的花园害虫是什么？
What garden pests do you struggle with the most? Aphids are the biggest problem for me.
蚜虫对我来说是最大的问题。
Aphids are the biggest problem for me. How do you prevent weeds from growing?
你如何防止杂草生长？
How do you prevent weeds from growing? I use landscape fabric to suppress weeds.
我用园艺布来抑制杂草。
I use landscape fabric to suppress weeds. Do you prefer indoor or outdoor plants?
你更喜欢室内植物还是室外植物？
Do you prefer indoor or outdoor plants? I prefer outdoor plants, they have more space.
我更喜欢室外植物，它们有更多空间。
I prefer outdoor plants, they have more space. How do you encourage bees and pollinators?
你如何吸引蜜蜂和传粉者？
How do you encourage bees and pollinators? I plant a variety of flowering plants.
我种植多种开花植物。
I plant a variety of flowering plants. Have you ever had a garden party?
你曾举办过花园聚会吗？
Have you ever had a garden party? Yes, it was a lovely afternoon with friends.
是的，那是一个和朋友们共度的美好下午。
Yes, it was a lovely afternoon with friends. What's the best flower for attracting butterflies?
吸引蝴蝶的最佳花是什么？
What's the best flower for attracting butterflies? Milkweed is excellent for attracting butterflies.
乳草非常适合吸引蝴蝶。
Milkweed is excellent for attracting butterflies. How often do you visit garden centers?
你多久去一次园艺中心？
How often do you visit garden centers? I visit about once a month for supplies.
我大约每个月去一次买用品。
I visit about once a month for supplies. Do you use any apps for gardening tips?
你使用任何应用程序来获取园艺建议吗？
Do you use any apps for gardening tips? Yes, I use an app called Garden Buddy.
是的，我使用一个叫园艺伙伴的应用程序。
Yes, I use an app called Garden Buddy. What gardening techniques do you find most useful?
你觉得哪些园艺技巧最有用？
What gardening techniques do you find most useful? Raised beds and drip irrigation are very helpful.
抬高的花坛和滴灌非常有用。
Raised beds and drip irrigation are very helpful. Do you enjoy garden photography?
你喜欢拍摄花园照片吗？
Do you enjoy garden photography? Yes, I love capturing my plants in bloom.
是的，我喜欢拍摄盛开的植物。
Yes, I love capturing my plants in bloom. How do you label your plants?
你如何标记植物？
How do you label your plants? I use wooden stakes with names written on them.
我用写有名字的木桩来标记。
I use wooden stakes with names written on them. What's the most rewarding part of gardening for you?
对你来说，园艺最有成就感的部分是什么？
What's the most rewarding part of gardening for you? Harvesting my own vegetables is the most rewarding.
收获自己种的蔬菜是最有成就感的。
Harvesting my own vegetables is the most rewarding. How do you choose a plant's location in your garden?
你如何选择植物在花园中的位置？
How do you choose a plant's location in your garden? I consider sunlight and drainage when choosing.
选择时，我考虑阳光和排水。
I consider sunlight and drainage when choosing. Have you ever done any garden volunteering?
你曾做过园艺志愿者吗？
Have you ever done any garden volunteering? Yes, I volunteered at a community garden last summer.
是的，我去年夏天在一个社区花园做志愿者。
Yes, I volunteered at a community garden last summer. What's your favorite gardening memory?
你最喜欢的园艺回忆是什么？
What's your favorite gardening memory? I remember the first time I grew a pumpkin.
我记得第一次种南瓜的情景。
I remember the first time I grew a pumpkin. How do you prepare your garden for winter?
你如何为冬季准备花园？
How do you prepare your garden for winter? I cover the plants and clean up the debris.
我覆盖植物并清理杂物。
I cover the plants and clean up the debris. What's your favorite time to garden?
你最喜欢什么时间园艺？
What's your favorite time to garden? I love gardening during the golden hour in the evening.
我喜欢在傍晚的黄金时刻进行园艺。
I love gardening during the golden hour in the evening. How do you deal with dry spells?
你如何应对干旱时期？
How do you deal with dry spells? I water my plants more frequently during dry spells.
在干旱时期，我更频繁地浇水。
I water my plants more frequently during dry spells. Do you have a favorite garden magazine?
你有最喜欢的园艺杂志吗？
Do you have a favorite garden magazine? Yes, I love Gardener's World.
是的，我喜欢园丁的世界。
Yes, I love Gardener's World. How do you learn about new gardening techniques?
你如何了解新的园艺技术？
How do you learn about new gardening techniques? I read books and watch online videos.
我读书并观看在线视频。
I read books and watch online videos. Have you planted any native plants?
你种过本地植物吗？
Have you planted any native plants? Yes, I have planted coneflowers and black-eyed Susans.
是的，我种了锥花和黑眼苏珊。
Yes, I have planted coneflowers and black-eyed Susans. What gardening projects are you planning next?
你计划下一个园艺项目是什么？
What gardening projects are you planning next? I want to create a butterfly garden.
我想创建一个蝴蝶花园。
I want to create a butterfly garden. How do you keep track of your plant's growth?
你如何跟踪植物的生长？
How do you keep track of your plant's growth? I take photos and write notes in my journal.
我拍照并在日记中写下笔记。
I take photos and write notes in my journal. Have you tried growing your own seeds?
你尝试过自己种植种子吗？
Have you tried growing your own seeds? Yes, I've started with tomatoes and peppers.
是的，我开始种植番茄和辣椒。
Yes, I've started with tomatoes and peppers. What's the most beautiful flower in your garden?
你花园里最美丽的花是什么？
What's the most beautiful flower in your garden? The peonies are absolutely stunning.
牡丹真是太美了。
The peonies are absolutely stunning. Do you have a plant that you've had for many years?
你有没有养了很多年的植物？
Do you have a plant that you've had for many years? Yes, I have a peace lily that I've kept for 5 years.
是的，我有一株和平百合，我养了5年。
Yes, I have a peace lily that I've kept for 5 years. How do you keep your flowers blooming all season?
你如何让花卉整个季节都开花？
How do you keep your flowers blooming all season? I deadhead them regularly to encourage new blooms.
我定期修剪花头，以促进新的开花。
I deadhead them regularly to encourage new blooms. Have you attended any garden shows?
你参加过任何园艺展吗？
Have you attended any garden shows? Yes, I went to the annual flower show last month.
是的，我上个月参加了年度花卉展。
Yes, I went to the annual flower show last month. What kind of outdoor furniture do you have?
你有哪种户外家具？
What kind of outdoor furniture do you have? I have a picnic table and some comfortable chairs.
我有一个野餐桌和一些舒适的椅子。
I have a picnic table and some comfortable chairs. Do you have a favorite garden color scheme?
你有最喜欢的花园配色方案吗？
Do you have a favorite garden color scheme? Yes, I love a mix of blue and yellow flowers.
是的，我喜欢蓝色和黄色花的混合。
Yes, I love a mix of blue and yellow flowers. How do you protect your plants from frost?
你如何保护植物不受霜冻？
How do you protect your plants from frost? I cover them with blankets on cold nights.
我在寒冷的夜晚用毯子覆盖它们。
I cover them with blankets on cold nights. What's your favorite flower to give as a gift?
你最喜欢作为礼物送的花是什么？
What's your favorite flower to give as a gift? I love giving tulips, they are so cheerful.
我喜欢送郁金香，它们真是太令人愉快了。
I love giving tulips, they are so cheerful. Do you have a rain barrel in your garden?
你在花园里有雨水收集桶吗？
Do you have a rain barrel in your garden? Yes, I use it to collect water for my plants.
是的，我用它来收集植物用水。
Yes, I use it to collect water for my plants. What's the most fragrant plant in your garden?
你花园里最芳香的植物是什么？
What's the most fragrant plant in your garden? The lavender smells amazing.
薰衣草的味道真不错。
The lavender smells amazing. How do you keep your garden organized?
你如何保持花园整洁？
How do you keep your garden organized? I use labels and keep everything in designated areas.
我使用标签并保持所有东西在指定区域。
I use labels and keep everything in designated areas. What garden events do you look forward to?
你期待参加哪些园艺活动？
What garden events do you look forward to? I look forward to the local plant swap.
我期待参加当地的植物交换活动。
I look forward to the local plant swap. Do you have a garden wish list?
你有园艺愿望清单吗？
Do you have a garden wish list? Yes, I want to grow more exotic fruits.
是的，我想种植更多的外来水果。
Yes, I want to grow more exotic fruits. How do you choose which seeds to plant?
你如何选择种植的种子？
How do you choose which seeds to plant? I look for seeds that are suitable for my climate.
我寻找适合我气候的种子。
I look for seeds that are suitable for my climate. Have you planted any trees in your garden?
你在花园里种过树吗？
Have you planted any trees in your garden? Yes, I planted a cherry blossom tree last year.
是的，我去年种了一棵樱花树。
Yes, I planted a cherry blossom tree last year. What's your favorite type of flower to see in bloom?
你最喜欢看到哪种花盛开？
What's your favorite type of flower to see in bloom? I love seeing cherry blossoms in spring.
我喜欢看到春天的樱花。
I love seeing cherry blossoms in spring. Do you use any gardening apps for planning?
你使用任何园艺应用程序进行计划吗？
Do you use any gardening apps for planning? Yes, I use an app called Garden Planner.
是的，我使用一个叫花园规划者的应用程序。
Yes, I use an app called Garden Planner. How do you keep your garden safe from animals?
你如何保护花园不受动物侵害？
How do you keep your garden safe from animals? I use fencing and deterrence like scents.
我使用围栏和气味驱赶动物。
I use fencing and deterrence like scents. What's your favorite herb to cook with?
你最喜欢用什么香草做菜？
What's your favorite herb to cook with? I love using fresh basil in my dishes.
我喜欢在菜肴中使用新鲜罗勒。
I love using fresh basil in my dishes. How do you encourage your plants to grow tall?
你如何鼓励植物长高？
How do you encourage your plants to grow tall? I provide them with stakes for support.
我为它们提供支撑杆。
I provide them with stakes for support. What types of vegetables do you recommend for beginners?
你推荐新手种哪些蔬菜？
What types of vegetables do you recommend for beginners? Carrots and radishes are great for beginners.
胡萝卜和萝卜很适合初学者。
Carrots and radishes are great for beginners. Do you enjoy cooking with your homegrown produce?
你喜欢用自己种的农产品做饭吗？
Do you enjoy cooking with your homegrown produce? Yes, it's very satisfying to use fresh ingredients.
是的，使用新鲜食材是非常令人满意的。
Yes, it's very satisfying to use fresh ingredients. How do you decide on the layout of your garden beds?
你如何决定花坛的布局？
How do you decide on the layout of your garden beds? I consider sunlight and accessibility when designing.
我在设计时考虑阳光和可达性。
I consider sunlight and accessibility when designing. What's the most challenging gardening skill to learn?
学习园艺最具挑战性的技能是什么？
What's the most challenging gardening skill to learn? Pruning accurately can be quite difficult.
准确修剪可能相当困难。
Pruning accurately can be quite difficult. Have you ever made a terrarium?
你曾制作过玻璃花园吗？
Have you ever made a terrarium? Yes, I made a small one with succulents.
是的，我做了一个小的多肉植物玻璃花园。
Yes, I made a small one with succulents. What's your favorite garden activity?
你最喜欢的园艺活动是什么？
What's your favorite garden activity? I love planting new seeds and watching them grow.
我喜欢种新种子，看它们成长。
I love planting new seeds and watching them grow. Do you have a garden buddy?
你有园艺伙伴吗？
Do you have a garden buddy? Yes, my friend often helps me in the garden.
是的，我的朋友经常来帮助我。
Yes, my friend often helps me in the garden. What's your goal for your garden this year?
你今年对花园的目标是什么？
What's your goal for your garden this year? I aim to grow more vegetables for my family.
我打算为家人种植更多的蔬菜。
I aim to grow more vegetables for my family. How often do you fertilize your plants?
你多久给植物施肥一次？
How often do you fertilize your plants? I fertilize them every 6 weeks during the growing season.
在生长季节，我每6周施肥一次。
I fertilize them every 6 weeks during the growing season. Yes, I have a vertical garden on my balcony.
是的，我在阳台上有一个垂直花园。
Yes, I have a vertical garden on my balcony. How do you deal with overwatering?
你如何处理浇水过多的问题？
How do you deal with overwatering? I make sure to check the soil moisture before watering.
我确保在浇水前检查土壤湿度。
I make sure to check the soil moisture before watering. Do you compost in your garden?
你在花园里堆肥吗？
Do you compost in your garden? What types of flowers attract hummingbirds?
哪种花能吸引蜂鸟？
What types of flowers attract hummingbirds? Trumpet vines and salvia are great for hummingbirds.
喇叭藤和鼠尾草很适合吸引蜂鸟。
Trumpet vines and salvia are great for hummingbirds. How do you prevent your plants from getting diseases?
你如何防止植物得病？
How do you prevent your plants from getting diseases? I rotate my crops and ensure good airflow.
我轮作作物并确保良好的空气流通。
I rotate my crops and ensure good airflow. What's the best time of day to water your garden?
给花园浇水的最佳时间是什么时候？
What's the best time of day to water your garden? Early morning is the best time to water.
早晨是浇水的最佳时间。
Early morning is the best time to water. Have you ever tried hydroponics?
你尝试过水培吗？
Have you ever tried hydroponics? Yes, I have a small hydroponic system at home.
是的，我家里有一个小水培系统。
Yes, I have a small hydroponic system at home. How do you choose the right soil for your plants?
你如何选择适合植物的土壤？
How do you choose the right soil for your plants? I look for soil that drains well and is rich in nutrients.
我寻找排水良好且富含营养的土壤。
I look for soil that drains well and is rich in nutrients. My favorite tool is my garden trowel.
我最喜欢的工具是园艺铲。
My favorite tool is my garden trowel. How do you handle garden pests naturally?
你如何自然地处理园艺害虫？
How do you handle garden pests naturally? I use neem oil and insecticidal soap for pests.
我使用苦楝油和杀虫肥皂处理害虫。
I use neem oil and insecticidal soap for pests. What's the best way to propagate plants?
繁殖植物的最佳方法是什么？
What's the best way to propagate plants? I prefer to use cuttings or division for propagation.
我更喜欢用插枝或分株法繁殖。
I prefer to use cuttings or division for propagation. I regularly weed and tidy up the flower beds.
我定期除草并整理花坛。
I regularly weed and tidy up the flower beds. Do you grow any herbs for cooking?
你种植香草用于烹饪吗？
Do you grow any herbs for cooking? Yes, I grow rosemary, thyme, and parsley.
是的，我种植迷迭香、百里香和香菜。
Yes, I grow rosemary, thyme, and parsley. How do you ensure your plants get enough sunlight?
你如何确保植物获得足够的阳光？
How do you ensure your plants get enough sunlight? I place them in spots that receive direct sunlight.
我把它们放在能直射阳光的地方。
I place them in spots that receive direct sunlight. What garden project are you most proud of?
你最自豪的园艺项目是什么？
What garden project are you most proud of? I'm proud of the vegetable garden I created last year.
我为去年创建的蔬菜园感到自豪。
I'm proud of the vegetable garden I created last year. Have you ever had a garden mishap?
你曾经有过园艺失误吗？
Have you ever had a garden mishap? Yes, I accidentally overwatered my succulents.
是的，我不小心给多肉植物浇水过多。
Yes, I accidentally overwatered my succulents. What do you do with leftover plant clippings?
你如何处理剩余的植物剪枝？
What do you do with leftover plant clippings? I compost them or use them for mulch.
我会把它们堆肥或用作覆盖物。
I compost them or use them for mulch. Do you have any garden goals for next year?
你明年有任何园艺目标吗？
Do you have any garden goals for next year? I want to grow more flowers for cutting.
我想种更多的切花。
I want to grow more flowers for cutting. How do you attract beneficial insects to your garden?
你如何吸引对植物有益的昆虫？
How do you attract beneficial insects to your garden? I plant flowers like marigolds and dill.
我种植金盏花和石螺等花。
I plant flowers like marigolds and dill. What's your favorite method of watering?
你最喜欢的浇水方法是什么？
What's your favorite method of watering? I prefer using a soaker hose for even watering.
我更喜欢用渗水管均匀浇水。
I prefer using a soaker hose for even watering. How do you celebrate the gardening season?
你如何庆祝园艺季节？
How do you celebrate the gardening season? I host a small garden gathering with friends.
我和朋友们举办小型园艺聚会。
I host a small garden gathering with friends. Have you created any garden art?
你制作过任何园艺艺术品吗？
Have you created any garden art? Yes, I made painted rocks for my flower beds.
是的，我为花坛制作了彩绘石头。
Yes, I made painted rocks for my flower beds. What plants do well in shady areas?
哪种植物适合阴凉处生长？
What plants do well in shady areas? Hostas and ferns thrive in shady areas.
葱兰和蕨类植物适合阴凉处生长。
Hostas and ferns thrive in shady areas. How do you keep pests away from your vegetable garden?
你如何防止害虫侵害你的蔬菜园？
How do you keep pests away from your vegetable garden? I use row covers and companion planting.
我使用型覆盖物和伴生植物。
I use row covers and companion planting. Start small and choose easy to grow plants.
从小处开始，选择易于生长的植物。
Start small and choose easy to grow plants. What's the best way to store your garden tools?
存放园艺工具的最佳方法是什么？
What's the best way to store your garden tools?